Hello, friends, it's TurboToller here, and it's time for another episode of Is It Worth It? The show where I use my limited amount of time to review games for you, my friends, who have limited free time. So without further ado, let's explore this week's game, An Odd Tale. So I found this game in the Steam store for free, and interestingly enough, it's a game that was put together by two high school students. So I'm really excited. It already kind of has a neat feel to it and a decent little soundtrack in the background. So right off the bat, the door's knocking and I said, let's go outside, and the first thing I run into is the goober guy. Funny thing is, when I start going through, I realize he is the goober guy or the goober driver. Just a funny play on words there, and I start to realize that this is a game that likes to add comedy to it and not take itself so seriously. That all comes to light the first place you go when you have to choose your class, and you can choose between a barbecue master or a math teacher or a unicorn. Now, each one of these classes is just kind of fun to read through the descriptions of them. None of them particularly stand out onto exactly what it is or what you're selecting, but something to take note is when you do select one of these characters, you are stuck with that, and the only way to change that is to start the game completely over. I did decide to go with chemistry teacher. I don't know what attracted me to that. I just thought it'd be a funny class to play. Kind of middle ground. I didn't want to go with something mythical because this world seems to be a mix of medieval and mythical, as well as the main protagonist, myself, is a high school kid in a hoodie and a ball cap. And one of the great things about this game are the NPCs. The conversations you have with them are very funny. The names they use for these characters are very clever. The first person we ran into was the goober driver, and the second person you run into is Toriel, the tutorial person. I quickly found out that one of my favorite things about this game was actually reading the conversations between you and the NPCs, which is funny because most MMORPGs, or any RPG for that fact, is something where I would normally want to skip through the chat and just get to the action, but in this game I found myself really enjoying the conversations and the clever writing put together by the creators. Now, one thing I'm not going to go through is all of the conversations, because like I said, that was actually one of my favorite parts, but Toriel tells me the first place I need to go is Dumpsterior, land of dumpsters, I guess, which, you know, speaks to my heart because we all know that I am Turbo Trash. I am terrible at video games, and I live in a dumpster. And one thing I really like about this game is, even though it's really basic, it does have a medieval feel to it, and you can tell they put a lot of love into building the cities and building the areas. With only two high school kids programming all these things, it was really awesome to see that they made the world a lot bigger and added a lot of detail to it. Even though there is a lot of copy and paste going on, that's something that does kind of have to happen when you're working on a project of this scale. But it's not really that noticeable. When you're playing the game, I didn't actually notice these things. These are things that I saw later after editing these videos. Is you see that some of the flowers replicate themselves, all the tents seem to replicate themselves, the books on the bookshelves are all the same book. But as you're first exploring the game, in my opinion, I didn't notice that because I was just, wanting to get into the game. Plus, if you saw my last video, you know that I'm more about the gameplay, the story, and the entertainment piece versus the graphics, because graphics, in my opinion, always come last. Now, moving is a little awkward. Your character only runs at one speed, and it's kind of a mix between a walk and a run. So you got this weird speed walk thing going on. It's also a very linear game. You can tell that there is a lot of love put into the characters and the world building, but it's also very basic in what you can do. You basically can go from point A to point B to point C, and you do need to follow that same order. If you go out of order, the NPCs don't talk to you. There's not a lot going on outside of your main quest, which isn't necessarily bad for a game this early in development, but it is something that, I do look forward to adding more pieces to maybe characters interacting with you or different things as these guys continue to work on this project. So the first thing I did is I was just running around the town exploring. I really wasn't paying attention to my quests, and I found this little eatery shop, and this is my first experience trying to see if I can interact with anything. I do find that in this building, even though it's big with a lot of characters and a lot of different things to look at, there's really nothing to do, and I ran into my first bug. I could not exit the building. So I go to the door to leave, and I couldn't leave. I was stuck in this room. I ended up having to exit the game, reload into the game to see if it would reset itself, and I reloaded into this room and could not exit this room. So normally in a game with a bug that basic, I would probably just give up, but there was something about this world, something about the definite love that was put into it by the creators that made me want to continue on and see what could happen. So I had to reset my game and start from the beginning. So to speed it forward, I did just pick chemistry teacher, and I decided I'm going to try to stick to the game design to continue moving forward through the story so I could see what the gameplay was like. I wanted to see what combat was. I wanted to see what the other areas of the world would look like. A great feature they did add, which I would suggest not doing unless you're in a situation where you're playing the game for a second time, is you are able to skip all of the conversations. Conversations are long, but honestly, to my point, they are one of the greatest parts about this game. I really enjoy the comedy that is put into it and the self-awareness and self-understanding that the writers put into the conversations you have with the NPCs. And to me, if you're skipping through that, you're missing a big piece and a big entertainment factor in the game. So now that we're in the castle, we're going to head to the dumpster wizard, meet my grandfather, my personal grandfather, not necessarily the character's grandfather, and see what's going on in his life. The best part is his house is a big dumpster, just like mine. The difference is mine's on fire, his is just a normal dumpster. So again, talking to the wizard, one of the best things is he's sitting there magically moving trash bags around. I don't know what it was, but it was just kind of funny. Conversation with him was interesting, though it was a little long. Most of these conversations, like I said, are long. What I found is this game does seem to be more of a storybook adventure, in the sense that the reading of the story seems just as important as the actual gameplay itself. So playing the game, reading the story, go hand in hand. If you take the story out, the game is very basic and bland, but if all you have is a story, I might as well just pick up a book and read it. This allows me to move through a world and feel like I am also changing that quest as we go. Something interesting they had in this castle was these braziers, and I hope I pronounced that right. Don't blast me in the comments if I said it wrong. Basically, torches on the walls, and when you interact with them, they ask you pop culture references. This one particularly, the first one I found, had to do with Gravity Falls, so thanks to my daughter, I've actually seen Gravity Falls, and I understood the reference. But there's a lot of questions that are things that aren't that I didn't necessarily know, or things within the game as well. They ask you those questions, and just added kind of an extra little fun Easter egg-ish feeling thing to the game. So another piece of this game, like I said, it is linear. It is A to B to C. I went to get my magical spell first, and I was not able to do anything. I ended up having to go get my weapon first. I explored through the magic shop before I was able to go to the weapon shop. At the weapon shop, though, has one of my favorite NPCs. His name is Defeatus. The conversation with him is great, and it reminded me of my early years working in a cash register at a grocery store. Now, picking the weapon, super excited for this. I had chocolate, which is the currency in this game. I was supposed to purchase a weapon, and I assumed I had to go purchase a spell as well. So I decided to go with the scythe. It looked really cool. It had a buff on it for 1+ confidence, which I assumed was kind of like a regular RPG. You know, when you pick up a weapon, it'll sometimes have extra stamina or extra mana. The stat of confidence for a high school student just to me sounded really clever. I really thought that was awesome. So I went with the scythe because one, it looked cool. Two, it gave me extra confidence. And, you know, as a young teenage boy, I need more confidence. I then went to the magical spell shop, was able to pick a spell, and it basically has to do with the class you selected. So by me selecting the chemistry teacher, my first spell I was able to get was Salt Shaker. Now, interestingly enough, the Salt Shaker, you pour it in your enemy's mouths, and it causes damage over time. You know, just like in regular chemistry class, your teacher would hold you down and pour salt in your mouth.
Who hurt you? Who hurt you? Who hurt you? Who hurt you? Who hurt you?
So I really enjoyed Old Donald, again, just to the NPC fact, funny character, but we're going to skip right to the combat because that's what everybody really wants to see. Super excited, I walked outside his house, I saw some creepy glowy eyes, I moved forward, and I was thrown right into combat. I wasn't sure what kind of fighting I was going to do, whether it was like a hack and slash or what it was, but it ends up being more of a turn-based fighting, which made sense for the style of game it was. So now I'm fighting. The first thing I do is I take the salt and I attack one of the enemies. I realize it's just a dot. It does damage over time. We'll see what happens. The next thing I do is I realize I have my scythe and I can take my scythe to hit somebody. So I select my scythe, but it only allows me to select myself. So I select myself and it gives me +1 confidence. Honestly, that's all it does. I was fairly disappointed, honestly. The combat was slow. It was unresponsive. There was a lot of clicking back and forth. And really, with the class I had and the weapon I had, all I could do was put salt on a character and just wait for the salt to kill him while I continually give myself +1 confidence every round, not even knowing confidence does, and it seems to have absolutely no effect on anything other than my confidence level keeps getting higher. So cool. But this fight ends up dragging out for a very long time while I wait for the salt to kill my enemies, and I hope I don't die myself. Spoiler alert, I win this fight. As soon as this fight's over, I'm immediately put back into the open world, and I move a little bit to the left, and now I'm engaged in another fight. A little bit worried because my health is now completely depleted. I'm in a fight, but I come to find out when I get into the battle, my health has returned. So I get thrown into a second fight, and I figure do the same thing. Put salt on one of the enemies, and then give myself a whole bunch of confidence. Again, not something I'm really looking forward to. I know this will be a slow burn just like the last one, so I'm going to speed this up for you. But halfway through, we run into a problem. I end up beating the witch, but now I'm fighting a druid. And if you haven't noticed yet, my attack does 9 damage per turn. The druid heals 15 damage per turn. So it turns into an extremely slow burn where there is absolutely no way I'm going to defeat this druid. I just have to wait until he kills me. Luckily, when you die in this game, you just lose some chocolate and you don't have to restart the whole game. But at this point as a player, I'm honestly really frustrated because the fighting isn't any fun, and because I picked a class, I picked a weapon not knowing anything about it before I got to actual combat, I'm now stuck with what I've picked. My goal is I can go back to town and buy new weapons and, continue down this path of playing the game. Because I was forced to choose my class and my weapon before the game even started, not even knowing how this game functioned, became blaringly evident in my selections. All said and done, I lose this fight, but I'm able to win the third fight and go back into Old Donald just for him to tell me where I need to go next. My goal was to get back to the town so I can again buy a weapon, but I end up in a new area with new enemies. So I'm running around, see those wolf things and a guy with a club. The characters aren't facing me, so maybe I can slip behind him and try to find this. Nope, they picked me up. So apparently it's just an AoE. If you get within a certain area of the enemy, you are immediately thrown into combat. Luckily, we know that my health regenerates when you start a new fight, and in this case, they gave me 170% strength, so I figured there's probably a chance, I probably have a chance of winning this one. So I start the way I started the last fight. I'm going to throw my salt and push some confidence. Unfortunately, the salt I threw was on a character who has the ability to block damage for 2 turns, so my attacks do nothing for the first 2 turns. I simply am able to continue boosting my confidence and have no other attack while they continually pummel me. At this point, I've already lost half my health and I haven't done a single piece of damage. This fight is over, but there's no quitting. I just have to sit here and wait till they finally kill me. Now, I do realize at this point I'm probably doing something wrong, but my thought is, well, maybe I can go back to the cart and I can get back to town, but when I try that, it doesn't work. Basically, it just tells me I need to complete this quest, go find the character I'm looking for. So I figure this time I'm going to sneak around the right side. And what do you know? Some giant colossus from across the river from super far away picks me up for a fight, and I'm now stuck loading into a fight that I probably can't win. And sure enough, after a long loading screen, a stone colossus with 150 health and a druid who can heal for more than I can do damage are in this fight, and I realize this fight is over again. So what did I do? I did what any reasonable person would do. I rage quit and said I'm not playing this game anymore.
I quit. I quit. I quit.
One of the things I quickly realized after rage quitting was, you know what? I really need to give this game another try. It is a passion project. There probably are some bugs, and now knowing what I know from playing the game, I can probably make some better selections. So I decided to restart the game from scratch. I hadn't even moved that far through the game, and this time I was going to make sure I picked classes that had better attacks and healing ability. I'd also get a weapon that did damage instead of just boosting confidence, so that when I got into these fights, I might be able to actually survive them and enjoy the game. It wouldn't make the combat any quicker or more responsive, but going into a fight knowing you can win is always a better feeling than going into a fight knowing that it's a lost cause. So fast forward again, I've decided to choose the unicorn because it looks like the unicorn does both damage and healing, which seems like a really balanced class to be in. I also decide for the weapon, I'm going to get the pitchfork because it does +5 attack. Something that did happen when I was in the magic shop, I ended up clicking on the girl again, and she ended up giving me 2 points, so I was able to get the first unicorn ability, which is an attack with the horn, and I got the second unicorn ability, which was a heal, and I thought, great, now I have an attack. a heal, and a weapon that can do damage, I should be able to access this game. Unfortunately enough, I ran into another bug. No matter what I did, I had my weapon, I had my ability. When I went back to the cart man, he would not advance me to the farm. Basically kept telling me I needed to complete the quest of getting a weapon and an ability, but at this point I had no chocolate left. I had a weapon, I had my abilities, and I couldn't figure out where to go from there. So sadly, I ended up deciding to give up on the game. So would I recommend this game to people who don't have a lot of time? No. There's too many bugs, there's too many things that just cause you to restart, and it's really depressing when you have to restart anything. Even though my restarts did take up that much time, it was kind of like one of those, I felt like I was wasting my time. Now, this is a game I'm going to keep on my Steam. It is a game I'm going to follow. I do love supporting small creators. I do think this game has a lot of potential. The writing for this game was my kind of funny. I loved it. I do believe these creators are going down a path of great things. Whether it's this game or the next thing they do, I do feel like they have a lot of potential ahead of them. And I'm really excited to see what this game could do with a little bit more time. Hey, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments a game you'd like to see me try next, and I'll let you know, is it worth it?